For those who don't know me, my name is Stefan Bear, 31 years old. I'm a dual US and German citizen, and I currently live in Ukraine, working to join the Ukrainian army. But also, while I'm waiting for my paperwork to go through, I'm helping run the 50 States for Ukraine initiative.
And I'm Colin. No, so that's it. No, so Stefan is very much the pioneer in this. Stefan has been very actively following Ukraine matters ever since the beginning of the full-scale invasion. And in fact, it was such that, whenever I wanted to know what was really going on, I would just ask Stefan, and instead of looking at a news source, etc. Stefan started doing convoy trips to deliver vehicles to Ukraine last year and asked me if I wanted to join. And I think on his fourth trip, I actually ended up joining him, and it was my first time in Ukraine, and I became very moved and motivated to continue supporting. And Stefan and I started our first fundraiser together. We called it the Bear Battalion, after our last names, Bear. And when we did that, we thought to ourselves, wouldn't it be great if we could replicate what we just did 50 times for each state in the United States? And there was born 50 States for Ukraine.
Stefan, what first sparked your decision to get involved in helping Ukraine?
So, I mean, it pretty much began the moment where the second invasion started. So I remember being very shocked because I think like everyone else, I thought, yeah, there's no way he would be stupid enough to do something like invade Ukraine. So I pretty much just immediately started actually by following your YouTube channel, Starsky. Like I remember like the very first videos you made and how like you were checking up on I forget his name, but there was an elderly man who lived in hospital. When the USA to Ukraine started being getting a bit partisan and being delayed, it made me quite irritated. And I thought, yeah, if you want something done, if you want something done right, do it yourself. So I reached out to Help 99 and asked, hey, can I volunteer as a driver? Maybe I just need to do something more than just sit in my couch at home and donate. And to my surprise, they said yes. So then I started doing these convoy trips between Tallinn and Kiev. And every time I went to Kiev, I kind of just wanted to stay. Every time I went back home to the Netherlands, it kind of felt like what I did didn't matter that much. And it just felt so weird just sitting in my office, working my day job, knowing that people were in Kiev were getting bombed every day. So I just kept on wanting to go back, and I kept going back, and I tried to do a little more every time. And yeah, now I'm here in Kiev, living here full time.
Colin, how did your own journey begin? Was there a particular moment when you knew you had to act?
The topic of the war against Ukraine is something that I care about, that I've been following. I did not even know, though, that I could get involved in such a way where I could personally be actively volunteering. And I think a lot of people don't know that. I think a lot of people basically support Ukraine. If you ask them, they say, yes, of course I do. But they don't realize that there's so much that they can do to actively support Ukraine. And so I had that moment when Stefan asked me, and I think then there was an additional moment that came when we had arrived in Kiev and when we were doing the handover. And we actually got to meet real Ukrainian soldiers fighting on the front lines that came to Kyiv to receive the vehicle. They expressed such gratitude to us, and one of them even gave me a big bear hug, and it was a moment I'll never forget, because I feel that they are risking everything to defend not only Ukraine but also Europe and all of our values of freedom and democracy. And I'm the one who should be thanking him. All I did was deliver a car, right? It was just, that was a moment that made me realize I really want to do more to help these people.
Stefan, the big picture, what exactly is 50 States for Ukraine and why 1,000 trucks?
Yeah, so like 50 States for Ukraine is deal with two missions or two pillars. So the first is to bring 1,000 trucks. And the reason why is just because the large national governments are very focused on big ticket items like air defense, jets, tanks, and those are all things that Ukraine needs very much. But there's also a big need for vehicles and just smaller everyday items that often get overlooked because they're not as famous or sexy. And it's really a place where civilian initiatives can really step in and fill the gap. We've been told by the Army that every vehicle can save approximately 20 to 40 lives during its lifetime. So just a thought that we could organize something that could save the lives of 20 to 40,000 Ukrainian soldiers really feels like something worth doing. So that's the first pillar. The second pillar is actually to fight disinformation from the Kremlin, because I really believe there's something about participating in these convoys. Like, somebody can be quite supportive of Ukraine, but when you actually go yourself, when you experience it, it it just takes it to a new level. And what I've noticed is that kind of coming back to where I was living in the Netherlands or the US, when people hear that you've been to Ukraine, they start to ask you. They say, "Hey, I don't know what to believe in the news. Can you tell me what's going on there?" And I thought, if we can get Americans to deliver these styles of trucks to Ukraine, they're going to go back home. They're going to share their stories. And it's really probably the best way to cut through the disinformation.
And the way we got to 1,000 trucks was really just a mathematical formula. There are 50 states, and we truly believe that each state can fundraise 10 vehicles. I mean, heck, if my brother and I were able to do it just on our own, then we believe that each state can fundraise 10 such vehicles. And
I think you made 20.
20, I got my math wrong. 20 vehicles, and that then adds up to 1,000. And also, in terms of having, we're big fans of having a really big vision, and even something that sounds unrealistic, but that's like the big pie in the sky goal. And the number 1,000 sounded good to us.
Holland is involved with an organization in Germany called Ukraina, and it's an organization based in Darmstadt. So Ukraine, Darmstadt spells Ukraina, and it's not the biggest town. I think it's like 150,000 people or so. But every week they have an event and a rally, and it's a very small but powerful community. And this community, I believe, Colin, feel free to correct me on the number. They're fundraising now for their 53rd ambulance for Ukraine, and it 57. So it's like, if one town can do 57 ambulances, I truly believe every US state could do at least 20 vehicles.
Colin, what these trucks actually do once they reach Ukraine, and can you explain why are they so vital for Ukrainian soldiers?
Yeah. So these trucks are incredibly versatile. They can do so many things. They're used for supply runs. They're used for infills, for exfills. They're just, when you have wheels and when you're able to have speed on the front, you can just do so much more in terms of protecting yourself. All of these vehicles come with armor. Some of them also come with drone detectors. And it really adds a turbo boost to both the protection and the effectiveness on multiple fronts.
What did people around you say when you told them you were gonna raise trucks for Ukraine?
Adam Mordy, when I told them the goal of 1,000, they was always like, "Wow, that's a great goal. That's very ambitious." It was kind of like good luck, but you're also kind of crazy. But maybe you're the right kind of crazy. Yeah, when it comes about trucks, it's usually people who aren't too familiar about what I do in Ukraine, and I just use that as an opportunity to explain, like, hey, you can get involved, you can make a difference. And by the way, would you like to join our 50 States for Ukraine campaign? Yeah, so it's usually maybe a bit of surprise, but when you actually break down the math for them, they're like, oh, yeah, I could totally see a state doing 20 vehicles. Yeah, why not?
Colin, on a personal level, what was the toughest emotional challenge in this work for you personally?
The toughest emotional challenge is knowing that Stefan is in Ukraine and that he is planning on joining the military. I'm very concerned for his life. He's my brother. If I'm completely honest, I don't really want him to do it, but I understand why he's doing it. So I'm just that's the most difficult thing for me. I would also add on that front, apart from that, this is war, and we're involved in things that affect the soldiers' lives, and we sometimes get good news from the front lines. That, for example, vehicles literally save lives. Sometimes when there's a drone hit, it'll hit the vehicle, but because it hit the vehicle, the lives of the soldiers are then saved. But then there are other times where it's not so lucky, and then soldiers are killed, and we sometimes see footage of that, etc. And that's very hard to watch. But it also motivates us to continue working and to continue fighting.
Stefan, can you share some of your experience of joining the Ukrainian armed forces with the people watching us and probably those who also consider joining the armed forces of Ukraine, joining the ranks of Ukrainian defenders?
Yeah, sure. So I made the decision last September, actually. That was during my third convoy to Kiev, and I was just asking myself, I'm driving trucks, but I feel like I could do more. What's really the most effective way I could help? And the conclusion I came to was being a soldier, because Ukraine needs more soldiers. And I thought that also it would be a good way to inspire people to get more involved, kind of based on leading by example, saying, hey, I'm willing to join the army. Could you at least contribute to this fundraiser, maybe? And also to motivate Ukrainians to show that, hey, people around the world really do care. So I've also seen more Ukrainians try to do more to help from abroad when they hear about what I'm doing. So the process, it really depends. So I've spent a good 6 to 9 months trying to prepare myself, because I don't come from a military background. So I learned how to fly drones. I took tactical medicine training called a combat lifesaver course. A few other things like learning how to build drones, learning how to shoot properly. And I came to Ukraine in June. And if I'm being honest, it's actually been a bit of a paperwork process because the process for joining is always changing, and there's a new way to do it now, where foreigners have to go to some recruiting center where they process all of your information. And it also depends if you're trying to join a unit who has taken foreigners before, or if there are units who have never done it before. So the first unit I tried joining didn't, so they didn't fully understand the process. So unfortunately, we kind of went in circles for a month or two, and it didn't really work out. So then I found another unit, and now we're almost done with the process, and I'm just waiting for my final SVU check. So if anyone from the SVU is watching this, if you guys could please give the final check mark, because I really want to I really want to be helpful. But yeah, I would just advise foreigners, do your homework, be patient. It's a process, and this process exists also to protect you. So it's I genuinely believe it's worthwhile doing. But it's always smart for everyone to do their own homework and research, and choose the path that's right for you.
Colin, what had the biggest influence on your perspective on this war, you being an American citizen or you being a European citizen?
Well, that's a great question. So the fact of the matter is, no matter who is in charge of the government, American values and European values are the same. We both care about democracy, liberty, humanity, self-determination. Those are fundamental American values. Those are fundamental European values. I was very proud to support Ukraine as a German American, because, people have asked me, Colin, you have no link to Ukraine. You're not Ukrainian. You don't have Ukrainian relatives. Why are you doing so much to support Ukraine? And I never felt that where you grew up or what language you speak is something that is what has to connect you. I mean, it can, but I most feel that when I share common values with someone, that that's what's most important. The Ukrainian people, the German people, the American people, we all share similar values. We're all kindred brethren, and that's what I believe, and that's why I think this is worth supporting. I think anyone in the world who believes in freedom and democracy and liberty is a brother or sister of mine.
If your neighbor's house is on fire, when you run over, the first question you ask is, hey, are you American or are you European? It's a fellow human whose house is on fire, and the natural human response is, yeah, how do I help? And let's ask questions later.
Absolutely, I think it's an absolutely beautiful thought that when you share same values with people, it already makes you related. Stefan, when you hit obstacles or donor fatigue, how do you keep yourself motivated?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, I think partially is because this is just something that I'm doing on my own. Even when Colin and I were doing the Bear Battalion, it was both of us, and we didn't just stop with the two of us. We actually reached out to all of our friends and we asked, "Hey, do you want to do this with us?" So we had a chat with at least 10 to 15 people. And the idea was that, when somebody got tired, someone would step up, we would use all of our combined networks together. And that really like made an impression on me because the very first time I did a fundraiser, I did it on my own on a YouTube channel, and it was so much better doing it with Colin. And that's what then led to the whole like 50 states idea. And I personally have not run yet into donor fatigue on the 50 states campaign because we now have all of these state leaders who are recruiting people to join their teams. And what I mainly focus on now is trying to find new state leaders or people who join existing teams. And it's the state leaders who are actively doing a lot of the fundraising. So for me, like I've always enjoyed working on a team. It's really been motivating and energizing for me. And whenever I see everyone else doing the best they can, it just inspires me to do more. So I would kind of say it's like a virtuous cycle. When you have a good team, you're probably less susceptible to long-term fatigue.
Colin, have you ever had moments of self-doubt? And if so, how do you push through them?
Oh, absolutely. I have moments of self-doubt every single day. And I think one of the things that I sometimes wonder about is, am I being too noisy? Am I being too annoying? Like when it comes to asking for donations, how do I come across? Is it too much? And so there was a time where I think I'd made my 7th LinkedIn update post or call for fundraising. And a guy that I'd already asked once or twice if he wanted to donate, it wasn't until the 7th time that I made a post about it that he donated, and he donated 500 euros, and it was amazing. And like Stefan was saying, the teamwork aspect helps a lot, but also just remembering to pace yourself and knowing that this is not a sprint, this is an endurance race, and it's all about endurance and keeping steady, keep calm, and carry on.
Stefan, was there a moment when you realized that your fundraiser, what you're doing for Ukraine, is bringing results, bringing actual results?
It's kind of like comparing the timeline on things, because I remember last year, I think from when I started doing fundraising, it took around a year to fundraise 2 vehicles, first on my own and then with the Bear Battalion. And now with this initiative, we've already passed 5 trucks fundraise within, Colin, I think it's 3 months or so. So yeah, right within 3 months, so things are picking up, and now we're also starting to do deliveries. And I was recently in Zaporizhia to hand over a truck to a unit, and I remember getting the 50 states patch to one of the soldiers, and like when they put it on their like armor plate, I was like, yeah, that's when I had that moment of, okay, I think we're going to start seeing more and more soldiers with 50 states patches and 50 states trucks driving around the front.
Also, Stefan, can you please name a few Ukrainian units you're working with?
So we've provided trucks so far to the Kraken unit, to the 25th Airborne Assault Brigade, to the 400. We're working on providing trucks to the 411th Unmanned Systems Forces. And we have a few more going on with Azov and Colin, can you think of a few more? I think we have some rocket launchers incoming, but we're not sure what the receiving unit is yet.
That's correct. Also, the 36th Marine Brigade.
Yeah, the 34th Marine Brigade.
Yeah.
Colin, what's the biggest thing you've had to give up or change personally to make this mission possible?
I don't feel like I've had to give anything up. I feel like I've only gained from this experience. I mean, maybe you could say free time, right? Especially when Stefan and I were doing the Bear Battalion, it was very intense, and I don't think I had any free time. But we really take joy in the small moments and enjoy things. And there's so much camaraderie and family when it comes to this that it maybe filled that gap a little bit. But when I say I feel like we've gained, I mean in terms of we've met incredible people, anyone who is willing to volunteer their time to support people fighting for their freedoms usually tend to be good people themselves. And also, they bring a certain ingenuity with them, a certain industriousness, and just it's amazing. I feel, I mean, monetarily, I'm probably poorer than I was when I started this because we also invest a lot of our own money into this. But I feel in terms of experience and in terms of friendship that I'm wealthier.
Stefan, do you think living in Ukraine has changed your personality?
Yes, absolutely. So I can definitely tell you, for personality, I'd say it's made me a much heavier sleeper because it has occurred multiple times now where I've actually slept through some of the Shahid attacks. And so I become a heavier sleeper, and I'm like, wow, like I could never have seen myself doing that. I'd say it's made me a lot more tolerant of risk. So what I've noticed is that coming to Ukraine, you feel a lot more nervous about what can happen. But when you're actually living day to day in Kiev or in any other city that's somewhat close to the front line, it kind of surprised me how quickly you adjust. And I feel like it's empowered me a little bit to make me realize maybe the world isn't as scary as you imagine it to be when you see it through the lens of a television. And it's made me more willing to do, I'd say, riskier things.
If you could send one message directly to Ukrainian soldiers who will be riding in your trucks, what would you say?
We're going to win together. Russia will be defeated, and it's because of you.
Stefan, if someone watching today cannot donate a truck, what's one small action that they can take that still makes a difference for Ukraine?
I'm going to actually quote something that a Gur soldier told Colin and I, which is fight disinformation because it's free to do and it doesn't take that much time and it really does make a really big difference. I'd say Russia sucks at war. So that means that they have to be relatively good at lying and they lie about pretty much everything. So I'd say they have more practice at lying than pretty much the rest of the world combined. And if we don't fight that, it can absolutely have an impact. So if you can't donate any money, just feel free to always promote a fundraiser and always try to fight disinformation and tell people about what's actually happening.
Yeah. And I would just add to that, you know how they have, there's petty crime and then there's organized crime, like the mafia, and they plan this out very rigorously. Well, in Russia, we have organized lying. Like it's weaponized and it's tactical. You have, I mean, of course, you know this. You know, you basically have armies of soldiers in front of computer screens that are churning out propaganda and mixing and meddling and things all over the world to their benefit.
Absolutely. You know, the other day I've heard this interesting thought that there are countries that have criminals, and Russia is basically a bunch of criminals who have a country. Stefan, what is the biggest misconception about Ukraine you have seen or heard among people in Europe and the US? I mean, what's one thing about this war you wish the world really understood, but most people unfortunately don't?
A couple things go to mind. I would say first about just what's at stake for the world, and I would argue so. Russia is basically trying to take the world back to 1939, and I told people if Russia wins, we're going to go back to 1939, where any country can just completely conquer another country. If that happens again, we're going to lose all the progress that we've made in international peace and coexistence. And now what's different now is that every country is going to be incentivized to have nuclear weapons because they're going to see and learn that, hey, that's the only way to protect yourself truly from a larger neighbor who wants to annex you and take over your people. And so I would argue anyone who cares about their own future, right, just based off your own selfish desires, that makes supporting Ukraine the right thing to do. And then that was my logic in the beginning, and then coming to Ukraine, just seeing how amazing the Ukrainian people are. It's only made me even more passionate about it. I remember the beginning scenes from the invasion the second invasion, where Ukrainian Babushka was telling the Russian soldier, "Yeah, you put these sunflower seeds in your pocket, so when you die, sunflowers will grow." And so I've always been very taken by that, and by that resilience and determination.
Yeah, I would say a lot of the misconceptions center around also Russia. And number one, that Russia's claims are in any way legitimate. Like I've heard good people say, like, well, Russia's just worried about NATO expansion, and they don't really want to have a NATO member state on their borders. And it's absolutely ridiculous because long before Russia already had NATO member states on their borders, and now Finland is a NATO member state on their border, and it completely misunderstands what NATO is, which is a defensive alliance which only exists in the first place because of Russian aggression. The bottom line is that for Russia, this is about imperialism. It's about resurrecting their former empire and annihilating anyone that gets in the way. So that's one big misconception. Another big misconception is that this is just Putin's war and not the war of the ordinary Russian. That's not true. Unfortunately, I would like for that to be so, but unfortunately, a lot of ordinary Russians have the so-called Ruski Mir, the Russian world mentality, which is very similar back then to Germany's Deutschland über alles under the Nazi regime. Like, we need to control the world. Back then it was the German world. Now there's like, we need to make this the Russian world. And it's not going to end when Putin is gone. A lot of things need to happen for the overall mindset of the Russians to change. So that would to summarize it, there's a bigger cultural problem here of the Ruski Mir, and not just one man, Putin.
I absolutely agree on that. And the last question for you guys, let's start with Stefan. What is the most important thing that we lack nowadays to help Ukraine win?
Yeah, I would just say political will in all the capitals, and the European capitals, and obviously the U.S. capital as well. I would just tell them, grow some balls, get it together, and let's win this war because it's up to us.
There's maybe also another misconception that I hear every now and then. Russia has nuclear weapons, and if we escalate, we'd be at risk of nuclear war. For the past 3.5 years, Russia has been threatening the use of nuclear weapons and to annihilate the world through nuclear weapons if the West doesn't just give them Ukraine. And of course, it's a paper tiger, empty threat. But the problem is like, as Stefan was saying, if you kind of get intimidated by that and don't act decisively, then Russia is going to act more barbarically.